today is Super Bowl, right? So we're actually watching the Super Bowl because it is a first. You want to talk about the Super Bowl today?
Yes, Rihanna's gonna be on halftime.
Oh, Rihanna!
So excited.
But we are celebrating a first this year. This is the first time we have two black quarterbacks playing in a Super Bowl game. So congratulations to Jalen Hurts and Patrick Mahomes because this is history making. And part of the poem that we're talking about today is like, when does it like, it's always like I'm the only one or the first one or the different one. When are we gonna have a world where you can just be, right, special and different and unique, and it's not a big thing, right? Everybody gets to bring what they want to bring to the table. So Milan chose this poem today, and I love it. So do you want us to tell us about it? Tell us about the author and why you like it.
Okay, so the poem's called Crayon Box, and the poem today and the poem from last time are both by the same poet, which is Essie Says, and this book is called Golden Brown Skin. And yeah, so this one's basically just about the beauty in diversity and the journey it takes to see that beauty, basically.
Yeah, so even when you started doing poetry, because she's been doing poetry for a long time, what interested you about doing and reading poetry? How did it help you?
I think that with most art forms, it's a way to like express yourself and what you want to say that without having to actually do the confrontational part of it. So with poetry, I think that you can create so many emotions with simple words, really, and I think that that's really beautiful, and you can make people feel what you want them to feel by reading your stuff.
Okay, so this poem is called Crayon Box.
Okay. My childhood consisted of a color palette composed mostly of a lighter pigment than my own. If our life's painting only consists of the colors of people we put in it, my painting looked a lot like a newspaper, lacking content.
Okay, I'm trying to read it so I can look at you guys. I'm gonna pretend like I'm on the stage. Lacking content. As the only sentence on the page, it wasn't hard to stand out. I tried to blend in, tried not to attract attention for fear of being mentioned. I changed the way I dressed to seem less confrontational, the way I spoke to seem more agreeable, the way I breathed so as not to be too audible.
But I could not change my flesh, no matter how bad I wanted to. Notice, I was always the black friend my friend's parents were referring to. Notice, it wasn't necessarily me girls didn't find attractive, but the skin I was dressed in. Notice, being mixed and being black weighs just as heavily on the suburban scale of normality.
I want to unpack this. Some of the things are running through my head, okay? You realize what they meant when they asked, "What are you?" As if human being wasn't quite registering on their one of us radar. I was lucky to have friends who didn't seem to notice me struggling to be like them. But the environment I was in never let me forget that I was the exception, not the rule.
What if, as children, we were forced to grow up in a school as colorful as our crayon boxes? Imagine how beautiful the stories we painted together would be if we began to see unique and beauty as synonyms, not commodities we can exploit to sell stories.
Yes. If the sentence is, "She's pretty for an Indian girl," or "He's smart for a Mexican," or "He's tall for an Asian guy," could exist without a qualifier attached to them.
She's pretty. He's smart. He's effing tall. Period. Color only matters to people who are afraid that one day theirs might not. I've been afraid most of my life of offending those people with my existence, but I'm developing a resistance.
A new set of eyes that see beauty in the abnormalities. I'm writing stories that tell of colors the first cameras couldn't quite capture. Full of characters so diverse in complexion, you'd have a hard time finding similarities in anything.
but our laughter.
Our laughter. So this is a powerful poem. I'm going to speak to it because I don't know about you guys. I remember when I grew up, I was in a predominantly white school, and so I can relate a lot to this. And I wasn't mixed, right, like her, but I always felt like there was never a color in the color box that could define me. And it does, and it makes you want to blend in more, right, when you're not truly seen. How did you feel about that first?
The first part?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that the whole blending in thing is so real because I see it even in my school. Like a lot of people just not really accepting themselves because they're too afraid to not be accepted by others. And so like changing the way you dress, the way you look, the way you speak, just to be accepted by certain people and basically valued by them. So yeah, I see it a lot, and I think that it's really nice to see someone being so honest about the experience.
That's part of the reason why we're doing this, because again, poetry can say the things like you were saying earlier that you might not really be able to articulate. But I remember when I was in high school, and there were all these fads would come. There was a mob, everybody would dress in black, and there was like the punk, and then there was the guest style. But it's all about fitting in, and then it gets exhausting, right? After high school, you get exhausting, and I think you get to really discover like who you are, and not in opposition to the dominant culture, but just for yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and what about this about being the black friend?
Yeah.
Do you ever felt like that?
Yes, I think more so when we lived in LA. Like I feel like I was always in my school, at least. I was always the black friend because I could count how many of us there were on my hands in the entire school. And so I guess like yeah, you just notice that energy, and at first when you're being first introduced to this type of environment, you maybe don't see it, but then you see patterns and you're like, wow, okay, so yeah, this is really how they see me. Not just a friend, but the black friend.
And it carries on to work, because what happens is when you have a culture that doesn't allow people to freely be themselves and be different and look different and be seen as not tall for an Asian guy but just tall, then it actually puts people against each other, right? So the black friend, like you can't have more than one black friend, right? So then the black people are like fighting for that position to be the black friend. Or same thing at work. Like if you can have so many successful people, a percentage of it can only be the black friend or the Asian friend or the Indian one. Like it's just so interesting how we're always trying to fit in, but somehow that trying to fit in puts you in a box where you stand out, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else in the poem that you want to just close with?
I just really like this line. What if as children we were forced to grow up in a school as colorful as our crayon boxes? And that's why the poem is called Crayon Box. But I just really like that because it's so true. And it talks about the beautiful paintings we could create with all the different colors, instead of it having to be just these many yellows and then one green.
Yeah.
So there's so many more opportunities and different creations that you can make with more than 2 or 3 colors.
Yes, that's so beautiful. So if you guys have any experiences that you'd like to share about your experience in your own crayon box, whether it's your neighborhood or your school or your job or your religious space, just put them in the comments and we'll be responding.
We'll be reading them.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing spoken word, and happy Super Bowl day.
Happy Super Bowl! Bye!
Okay.
We should do another